Personnel, welcome back to Phyllis and Devotion. This is the midweek special, and we're talking after a pretty good win on Tuesday. Tim, you were there. What was it like?
It was great, but it wasn't sponsored by the Fat Boar, which you missed. So let's sponsor by the Fat Boar. Fat Boar, first and foremost.
We'd have got to that.
We wouldn't.
But
we're
you
there.
did it so seamlessly.
It's fine. It's in. It doesn't matter. Well, we were rewarded with a pretty dour, winnable tie against Reading in the third round, which is nice. But I mean, the Preston game was great because every championship game, everybody says that championship is the best league in the world, and we're kind of seeing why now, because none of the games are dull. They're not boring. They're always action packed. They're end to end. They're full tilt, and you never really know what's going to happen. And that was the beauty of Tuesday night. You know, we should have been dead and buried at half time, and then we pinned them back for the entirety of the second half, and it was great. You know, Wrexham at the moment are realistically a one-half team, and based on the current opening month or so. So, but it was really good. I enjoyed it. It was nice to go back to Deepdale after 25 years of where it was. I think it's 25 years, so a bit of a while. And again, lots of positives to take out of it. Most notably, a win. So that was good.
A win in 90 minutes. It's our first one.
A win in 90 minutes, which was key. The bench, again, massive. The bench is just huge. I mean, we were fortunate because is it Ozamajic?
Yeah, he went off injured, didn't he?
Yeah, he came on. He soon off straight after. So they were kind of like, playing a bit of a lone furrow up front, really, one person. So, but you know what? It was a good day out, apart from whatever crash happened on the N6 or whatever cost me a 2.5 hour drive that should have been an hour and 5 minutes. But there we are. It was worth it in the end, as was the Spud that I had before the match.
The Spud brothers. Can you take me through the Spud brothers?
No, well, I didn't go to the Spud brothers. I mean,
Okay.
the Spud brothers come with a vast amount of TikTok and social media palaver, of which my good lady said, "I'll come to Preston." I was like, "Hey, why are you jumping at the chance to come to Preston?" It turns out she knew all about the Spud brothers from TikTok. But we got there, the queue was enormous. And then Kath Jackson, better half of Matt from Racecourse Ramble, said, "Go down the far end. There's another Spud truck. That's the original one, and there's hardly a queue." So I don't think it was under the Spud Brothers guise per se. It didn't have the whole livery as such, but it was still, I think it's still the same products. Spud's a Spud, albeit a very expensive Spud. 10 quid for Spud.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
How is this a fashionable thing now? Can I just interject, because it's a jacket Spud.
A jacket Spud? I don't think anyone calls it a jacket Spud. I think it's a jacket potato.
Well, I do.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I don't know why Preston's the epicenter of this.
Everybody's got it. It was the best away day food I've had since Kidderminster, and we all know what that was like and why that was so legendary. I know what you mean, but at the end of the day, in a weird way, it was just nice. It was 10 quid. It was outside. Didn't have to queue for it at half time. Didn't have to. I mean, the madness of having food in a ground and queuing up and missing a quarter of the game because you want a pint or an overpriced Kit Kat, or in your world, Andy, an overpriced cup of tea, still blows my mind. So I was quite happy to pay a tenner for a chili cheese jacket Spud. And Chris is looking on forlornly going, "How have you won an award for this pod?" And I can fully understand your skepticism. So we'll cross that bridge.
We need to go in with the big question first. How much would you pay for a cup of tea at a football ground? Because I think anything above £1 is absolute daylight robbery.
A coffee, which says everything about the hours you tend to do in a car, because you need the caffeine rather than a cup of tea. Yeah, £2. I've paid £3.50, I think.
Wow.
Which is basically just.
It's a different ball game. It's a different. We didn't do that at Braintree away.
Welcome to the championship.
For those unfamiliar with Chris's dulcet tones, we're currently joined by Chris Wathan. I always said Waden for years until you corrected me. It was Chris Wathan, BBC football correspondent, sports journalist extraordinaire for BBC Wales. Is that a good enough title?
I'll take whatever title you're giving me. Basically, yeah. I'll happily receive it all.
I think we'll go with that. And so, I mean, we kind of primarily got you on to broach the main topic of today as we're recording this, few hours after Craig Mellby announced his Wales squad for the Kazakhstan World Cup qualifying match, and also the friendly against Canada in Swansea. I mean, I don't know how the other guys feel. I mean, I'm personally beaming with pride and joy that we now have Wrexham players back in a Welsh setup because, I mean, you'll know. Can you remember when the last time that was?
Well, look, the FAW's press release says it's the first time in more than a decade since a Wrexham player has been called into a squad. And I'm very fond of the guys of the FAW, but to me that screams out of going, look, we can't be sure there wasn't a random call up from the reserve list somewhere. And to be honest, I can't be 100% sure. Look, I'm going to go into semantics now. I would say that the last Wrexham player capped by Wales was Neil Taylor in May 2010 against Croatia in Osijek. There will be those that go, well, was he really a Wrexham player? Because it was the end of the season and he was out of contract, but he certainly wasn't a Swansea City player by that point. So I would say Tails in 2010. Before then, you're probably looking at what? Steve Evans against Russia in 2008. And then the halcyon days of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm pretty sure the game was at the racecourse. So it might have been a John Toshak move to get a few extra through the gates, where Steve Evans, Chris Llewellyn, and Mark Jones would have all been on the pitch at the same time.
Right. I think he's right.
That was it. I remember I was living down south at the time and watched it on the telly, thinking, A, it's at the racecourse. B, there's 3 players from our own team in there that, I suppose in a weird way, I mean, that was the time where Wales were, with the greatest respect to those players and others that are around, were a bit more scrambling around for players, shall we say, didn't quite have the same levels that we've had from, the years building up to 2016 and beyond that. And as a result, kind of the opposite of whatever a perfect or imperfect storm, I guess, Wrexham was dropping out the league, being out of the league for 15 years. You ain't ever going to see any Welsh representation from Wrexham in that current climate unless the Welsh setup really fell off a cliff, which was never going to happen because of Gary Speed's legacy and everything that's been built upon it since.
Yeah, look, I've spoken to Nathan Blake a few times about this when there was a discussion about Mullin making the squad in recent season. There's levels, isn't there? And if you're in non-league, League Two, even League One, let's just ask Ruben Colwell, as well as he's doing, hasn't made this latest squad. There are levels. If you are in the Championship, not only are you attracting international quality players, as we're seeing this season, but it's just that a step closer to the kind of experience that is needed at that top level. And going back to not having players in, it's tough, isn't it? Because the club was in non-league, and yet that's not to say that the area hasn't been massively represented during that time. And we mentioned Neil Taylor, and you can talk about, Harry Wilson, and even that game back in Liechtenstein when those players were, you say they were scrambling around. It was Jason Kumas, I believe, who was scoring goals. Of course, Wrexham boy, as is his son. So it's not that Wrexham as a town, as a footballing hotbed, and North Wales in general hasn't been represented. It's just having that team sheet, as you will know, when the player's name is there and in brackets it says next to it Wrexham, and there will be, good reason to have a little smile and a little nod. It's just a little another marker, a little another acknowledgement of where the club is, and it's lovely to see.
No, Chris, of the 3 people who've made it, we got Broadhead, we got Kiefer Moore, and Danny Ward. They've all come in this season. What have you seen of these 3? I mean, I know Moore was at Cardiff, and Broadhead has done the rounds a bit, likes of Ipswich. What do they sort of bring to the squad, and how can we use them? How can we utilise them in the Championship? I think Moore's already shown his worth to us, but
I've been really impressed with Kiefer. I think everyone has, hasn't they? I think Phil Parkinson's used the word colossus about 3 times in describing his performances, and he's just perfect for what Wrexham want to do, because he is that sort of next level up in terms of he has the natural ability and athleticism to sort of mould into Wrexham style. And perhaps we shouldn't be surprised. Perhaps arguably of all the signings, he's the one that's hit the ground running the quickest. In terms of Nathan, I saw I was really excited when I used to see Kiefer and Nathan Broadhead link up for Ipswich when they won promotion from the Championship. That team was so good to watch. But I was at the Kairos on Saturday, and I found it really interesting that he just hasn't quite. I think Parkinson used the words, "We've still got to learn about him, and he's still got to learn about us." And I think that was really evident at times where he was dropping deep. Matty James, I can remember having the ball at one point, and Nathan Broadhead dropping deep, wanting to receive it and spin and go, but the ball's already gone. And it's just sort of like getting everyone to tune in. And it's not just about Broadhead fitting into a style. It's also going, right, we've spent a lot of money on a talented player here who can be a difference maker, as I think is one of the phrases these days. So right, we've got to work out how to best make the most of that. And I think he can be a real success. He's got to have minutes in him as well. It's one of those players that you're not quite sure what his actual position is, but I think that's me being old, and I think a lot of forwards are like that these days, where you can't really nail down an old-fashioned formation position for them. You just just tends to evolve, doesn't it, as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's particularly true. Like, there's the common misconception or myth that Parky just plays a 3-5-2, and you have to fit within that. So you're sort of thinking, where does Broadhead fit in that? Is he the attacking mid from the free? Is he off the striker? Or is it that maybe Parkinson's looking to evolve it and maybe it becomes more like a 4-3-2-1 with Broadhead and maybe Windass brought in to play those sort of floating roles with more as the as the sort of focal point. Just talking about Danny Ward now, would you imagine that he would come in Wales' number one after playing starting the season with us, or do you think it's Darlow's still the preferred option?
Well, it's weird, isn't it? Because he's got more of a right to start the season, because Danny Ward was starting as number one when he wasn't playing a minute for Leicester. So now he's actually getting minutes. But, Carl Darlow sort of ended that last camp having sort of got himself ahead of the pecking order, but now finds himself out of the Leeds side. Bellamy, when he's spoken about his number one and gets really annoyed, Craig Belly getting annoyed? Never. No, he gets a bit frustrated that we're fascinated by who exactly is his keeper, and it's like, well, he trusts all of them, etc., etc. I've been impressed by Darlow, but Danny Ward is solid for all those. Said he could have done better, certainly against West Brom. He does have that experience at international level, and people will wonder what you mean by that. But there's an ebb and a flow to international football that is different to league football, and I've spoken to players, especially that golden generation. We will forever be happily able to talk about for years to come, who say in those early years, just getting used to that rhythm, that the way it's refereed, the way that it's not Championship, which it can be, 100 miles an hour in comparison, takes time. And Danny Ward has that, even as a goalkeeper, So, yeah, one thing I've learned in my career is never try and second guess Craig Bellamy, because you're very rarely right. So I'm not going to second guess who he's going to go with in goals. But look, with Danny, I think it's been a mystery to a lot of us who have seen him being able to perform for Wales, why he wasn't being picked by a Leicester, but why he wasn't wanting to be a number one elsewhere. And so to see him now at Wrexham and take that mantle and let's be honest, displace a player who was very popular with fans in Arthur, is great to see. And, keepers are around for a long time, so he's got plenty of time, isn't he? I'd like to see more from Danny this year. I want to see him kick on, which seems strange for a player of his age. I think he can do that.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a bone of contention amongst their own fan base, who is the preferred number one, which is odd. I mean, I think there's a very, very small minority that almost kind of willing Danny to fail or want him to fail, even though he's a local lad who's done well. And yes, there's an argument he's been a little bit complacent by settling on a bench here, there, and everywhere for too long. But like you said, he's in, he's getting minutes. The microcosm of being a goalkeeper is that they will flag up the errors and forget about the sort of worldy performances, which has probably been the case so far. But then Arthur had a really good game at Preston the other day, so that's what you want. You want that level of competition.
Well, look, can't forget Danny's a big character as well, a big experience, and like we all know, the emphasis that Phil Parkinson puts on having the right kinds of character in a squad and an experienced man that they would have lost with Mark Howard. And I think that's going to be good. That's going to be good to have him in the building for that alone, but also for Arthur, who I don't think was. He's nowhere near his potential. I had a couple of times last year. I was thinking there always seemed to be mistakes in Arthur. I wasn't as convinced as perhaps others. Not that in his all-round ability, but that he's ready now. So I think that's really good to have the pressure taken off him, and again challenge him. So go on and show why you should be in the side. And I love the way when he was taken out of the firing line last season, he came back a better player, didn't he? And had a really important run in the side that ultimately led to the championship, didn't it?
Yeah. Let's move away from Wales. Let's move away to the Championship in general, which I know you've covered for long periods of time. Has it shocked you that the Championship has shocked us?
No. It's I'm really happy with what I've seen from Wrexham in the Championship, which sounds bizarre when there's one point to the name. And yeah, look, second half against Wednesday was just a difficult one and a weird one where you could just, I think everyone in the ground could see it coming but couldn't do anything about it, very much including the players. And which is horrible when I was on writing duty on Saturday. So you're going, oh, come on. If you're going to let Wednesday back in, can you at least do it early so I can have time to rewrite? But generally, I think it's the best thing I can describe it is perhaps more so when I started covering Swansea in the Premier League. And we've all watched Premier League football. Yeah, we've all watched Match of the Day. And I think the added scope I had from watching Swansea at that point was that the press benches were really low down. So it was almost eye level with the pitch. And all of a sudden, everything just seemed that much quicker. And because you've seen it so close in a ground that you're used to seeing Championship and before that League One football, it was just, it was almost just take your breath away a little bit. But Swansea got used to it. And I have no doubt Wrexham will get used to that same slight step up where everyone's just that. I mean, go back to Nathan Blake comment about levels. Every player you come up against is in the Championship for a reason. And they are just that half a yard quicker than those in League One. And they are just that half an inch taller and a little bit more stronger. Everything is just that little bit up. So you have to meet that and get used to it. But let's not forget, you've got a lot of players in that Wrexham side who are used to it. What they're not used to it is as a team yet. I think that's the bigger thing. I don't think it's players suddenly going, oh my God, this is Championship and everything's a bit much for us. So perhaps I go back to that point about watching Swansea close up. Is it the fans that are going, oh, this is a little bit tougher than I thought. This is a little bit faster than I thought. This is, we're not going to be as relentless as the side was able to do last year because other sides will be able to match us more for energy. So I don't think it's the players that are having the shock. I think it's probably everyone watching it week in, week out.
Just picking up on that, Chris, there was not really a lot of boos last week, but there was a smattering after the final whistle. Where do you think Wrexham's fans' expectations are at the minute? Do you think they're a little too high in terms of, I know we've been on this marvellous run, but are they a bit too up there at the minute?
Oh, Should we go back to Wales and quote Chris Coleman and say, "Don't be afraid to have dreams"? I don't know. I'll ask you, if you guys were there. I thought those boos were the referee, or certainly the decision about possibly a penalty.
No,
And that's why I didn't make any reference to it for that reason.
I'm not so sure, Tim. I don't know what you think. I think at the end, I think it's if you you boo at the end because you're not happy with the team. I think.
I think it was that because and I think I never really truly agree with it because, like I said earlier on the last podcast, it's very rare this Wrexham team under this stewardship have really let us down in any way, shape, or form. But that second half was unacceptable, regardless of it was Sheffield Wednesday and their circumstances or somebody else, just because of the way they regressed and went into their shell and just looked devoid of any ideas. And that went through all the players to the management, very questionable substitutions. So I think that's why it was. But I don't think it was booing out of that was disgusting. I think it was booing out of frustration that we let 3 points slip and settled.
And I wonder if it was slightly angled towards the management. And the reason I think this is, look, we could all see what was happening in that second half. That Sheffield Wednesday changed formation 2-3 times. Bannon became free, but we just did the same thing we always did, and we always have for the last 3 years. And I sort of feel that championship teams and championship coaches and championship players have within them the ability to adapt 3 or 4 times to suit the needs of a game, which Sheffield Wednesday did on Saturday. And I don't think we reacted to that. And I think that's where the frustration comes from. Maybe if we were able to get someone off the bench to sit on Bannon, or maybe slightly change formation, like Parkinson does change formation, but only when we're losing. And I think we could all see that we're going to try and grind it out, like we've done so many times in League 2 and League 1, and we've managed to do it. But it's just another sort of example of how the Championship is a slightly higher level, that they will really expose your weaknesses if you don't adapt. And I think maybe that's where the frustration came from.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just thought that it was one of those moments where could have been a penalty, go down the other end and score, and that was still fresh in people's minds. We go back to that question of expectation. It's like everyone's entitled to their expectation. When you spend the kind of money that Wrexham have, whether and it's perfectly reasonable and within their means and within their budgets to do so, you're adding another layer of let's give people a reason to want to shoot Wrexham down, and let's put another layer of pressure. And I was chatting to this with someone at the game on Saturday, is that I am comfortable with what I have seen so far. Let's forget that second half, right? But generally, I am comfortable with what I have seen, and I am comfortable with the level of players that are there. That it's not going to be a slog. Let's put it like that. And how it goes and how the momentum takes you could be looking a little bit further up the table. What Wrexham won't be able to control, which is ironic given everything that's been around the club over the last 4 years, is the narrative. Because look, we all know that Wrexham's story goes far beyond our borders and our local readership and listenership. But the Championship, and go back to your point, Liam, about the change, the Championships, the eyes on the Championship are greater than League One, which just sort of happens, doesn't it? And people sort of switch on when it comes to either a big game or the end of the season. The Championship has week in, week out profile. And I don't just mean headlines for clicks. There is much more regular coverage of the Championship. There is much more regular awareness that Wrexham are yet to win in the Championship. And whether like it or not, the narrative of Wrexham having not won, whether it's fair, whether it's been a tough opening period of fixtures, whether whatever's happened in games will exist and the pressure will build. Now, Parkinson's dealt with that. I actually asked Kiefer Moore that question on Saturday, and he gave an answer of, well, look, that's part of the privilege of playing for this club, and part of the buy-in is that it's good to have that profile, but it will be bigger than it's ever been before, and how that is handled is going to be just as important as how anything's handled on the pitch and come up against better players and better managers. And it's going to be fascinating because, you know, there are those wanting Wrexham to fail, you know, and that's the reality of it, even more so with the money spent.
Chris, before we let you go, because we've got a second Chris joining us shortly, soon enough. I know, I'm full of Chris's this week. 2 questions for you. First one, do you think that we will be sitting here in a week's time discussing a 4th Welsh international at Wrexham in the form of Jordan James?
I think Phil Parkinson earlier, I think, confirmed he's a player that they've looked at, which I think everyone knew, but it's the first time I've actually heard the manager say that. We can leave it to everyone to interpret what they want from that, whether that means that the deal's not happening and he doesn't mind now admitting it, or that he's confident something's going to happen. I can bring you no exclusive here on the podcast.
Gut instinct.
I'd like to see it happen. I can give you that. I really like JJ. I really like him as a player. I like the fact that he was brave enough to go to France. Do you know what I think he also brings, right? I want to see, this is going to sound stupid for a side that's trying to adapt to the Championship. I want to see more of League One Wrexham. And by that, and I think we saw it for a long period against Southampton. And I don't mean that, or let's they're a direct side, blah, blah, blah. But Wrexham can shock teams by not being the same. Okay? And that work rate, that energy, that ability, like the James McLean-esqueness of the side will upset teams. And JJ, as well as being a really cultured player, has that in him. He has that little bit of bite and a little bit of doggedness. And I think that would be really good for Wrexham this year, because I think that could be an X factor at times, you know, and brings that momentum again, you know. So yeah, I'd like to see it happen. Whether it will, I don't know, because, you know, Ipswich are interested. Ipswich suddenly have sort of sparked into life, haven't they, with a couple of their signings, winding up Norwich fans as well today, it looks like, by signing someone across the Old Farm rivalry. So yeah, and it's going to be a fun few days, isn't it? When we say fun few days, it's fun if you're looking from the outside. If you're working in it, it's really not fun. It's really tedious. You just want to get to the end of the window so you can get your life back and put your mobile phone away.
Yeah. And the final one from me, and I'm not going to ask you who's finishing highest, because that would be unfair. Where will Wrexham finish in the division, and where will Swansea?
We more or less bloody asked him the question.
Yeah, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Who's going to be the top team in Wales, Chris? Get off the fence.
You know what? I was waiting for the draw last night, and I'd already sort of researched. I was convinced it was going to be Wrexham Cardiff in the Carabao Cup 3rd round. Look, Swansea are a really interesting project this year. I haven't seen a lot of them as it happens, but I think they've made some really interesting signings. They're sort of Swansea's rise to the top was so much based on recruitment and signing players that other people weren't aware of and weren't looking at, and when they sold the player, having the next one already lined up. They seem to be getting back to a little bit of that, but they are still very. They need a striker, so they're trying to do that before the deadline day, and there's not a lot of depth there. But there's some positive vibes of what's happening at Swansea. Wrexham, though, I was telling anyone who would listen that don't rule out a playoff push. Now, the beauty of the Championship is, until about 3 weeks before the end of last season, that every side down to 14th was still involved in a playoff push, and every side up to 14th was still in danger of being relegated. So that is completely safe ground for me, isn't it? It's a really fancy way of sitting right on the fence, isn't it? But look, I've been telling people that don't be surprised Wrexham give this a go. And I think that's the mentality. That's the vibe I've had. That's all the sort of guidance from the club is the wrong word. It's all the things I've picked up from the club is that now's the time to try and make the most of this momentum, because it's quickly lost and sometimes never regained. So I'm here.
I can deduce that Wrexham was the answer from that. From that, Chris, I'm having that.
No, as it
Too late now.
stands, yeah, why not? No, I'll deny
We'll
it.
take it. We'll have you on before the end of the season anyway, no doubt, and you can reevaluate if need be. But we'll take it at this juncture because we're all...
I'm look. If nothing else, it's really enjoyable because I've known some of you a long time now, and where it was, let's be honest, it was hard work covering Wrexham, and I was, when I started out doing a bit of commentary for BBC, it was like solo man, no pundit next to you, and you're wondering who's listening, and
try not to get electrocuted at Dover, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And those times were great, but being having the privilege and the position that I'm in to have covered some of those recent moments has been incredible. Not just because everyone wants to be at those moments, but because I know what it means to I'm not from Wrexham and I'm not a Wrexham fan, but I know enough about the club and I know enough people who it means so much to, that I have been a privilege and tried to share that story on a much wider scale, and people really are interested now. And I think I wrote a piece on the game that promotion was decided against Charlton last season, and and I mentioned Geraint Parry because just seeing him on the side of the pitch, that is fantastic, and that has been such a joy to see the joy in other people's faces. And part of my job, whatever happens, wherever they finish this year, however long this ride is going to last, whatever the bumps in the roads, however long it's going to take a win, to be able to reflect those moments to a huge audience now is why we all do the job.
Great stuff.
Chris, thank you so much. You're welcome to stay on. If we're about to talk all things Millwall, but please stay on if you can. We've got another Chris.
You can't have two. Look, you
can't have two Chris's.
Three Wales internationals. You can't have two Chris's as well. It's just getting greedy. So I'll leave you to it, and I'll catch you all soon.
Here's Chris number one. Chris number two. Chris from Chat with Chaps. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm all right. Tell us why Chat with Chaps. Are you chaps? Do you wear chaps? What's the situation?
All of the above. No, so my surname is Chapman, so it's just
there we are.
It's a play on the surname. I realised it didn't rank very well for SEO for Millwall podcast, so I've had to add a Millwall podcast in at the end just to make it all a little bit better.
That's the same for us because we're Fearless in Devotion. There's no Wrexham in the name. We should have had Reynolds in there. Should have taken a look at about Brian Red.
Yeah, but when they get bored, we'll have to change it, won't we? So
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but there we are. Chris, just tell us a little bit about the pod and stuff. From your side of things, how long you've been going, when you set it up, etc., etc. What makes you differ from the others? I'm sure there are several.
Yeah, I mean, there's not bundles actually. I think there's only about 3 or 4. We're not as well supported globally as you guys for various different reasons. But been going just over a year, and we're doing okay. We've got just under 2,500 subscribers in a year, which isn't bad. I think it's probably 20% of the Millwall base, so it's doing all right. And I think what makes us different, I think, is that everything we do goes to cancer research. So all of the profits, they all go to cancer research. We hosted a collection day last year, and last season we raised £10,000 for cancer research. So it's a nice sum. Nice to feel like we're making a difference. So the aim is to provide, hopefully, good content. Not shouting, swearing, hollering. It's sort of a little bit more in depth, a little bit more analytical, and we're contributing towards a good cause.
Was there any reasoning behind that? How that came about, specifically cancer research or anything?
Yeah, I think myself, I run the podcast. It was a few other lads that contribute, and unfortunately, it's a disease that affects a lot of us, right? And I've certainly been affected by it, and close family and things like that. So it just was near and dear to my heart. And listen, you're never going to be a multi-millionaire running a Millwall podcast. So if I can contribute a little to a cause, then why not?
Well, that's to be massively applauded. That's amazing. I think that link is in your all your socials as well, isn't it? I think there's a link there. I think it's still growing. There's like over 10 grand in there raised already, so that's still ticking over nicely from the last one you had. But let's look ahead to the Chris Armstrong George Evans derby. I can't think of any other players who've played for both.
We've got another Millwall player in the ranks. Haven't we? Longman played for.
Did he?
Millwall.
He did. He was on loan at us. We were actually quite disappointed. Well, 50-50. 50% of fans, myself included, were quite disappointed we didn't sign him. And obviously went to yourselves.
Yeah. Just looking, I'm going to be absolutely honest, right? So I don't know much about the Championship because obviously we've gone through League Two and League One pretty quickly. You don't really get a base of knowledge. I'm looking at your team. There's not a huge amount of names that are jumping out to me, but that probably says to you that Alex Neil's probably got a very sort of team ethic there, and there's no real stars. Am I right? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have had a few stars over the last year or so, but we've sold them. None so much. Literally this morning, Japhet Tanganga was announced that he went to Sheffield United. So
you need a new picture, mate. Sorry.
I know. Yeah. I haven't got the heart to take it down. Even my missus was like, "You're going to take that down?" I'm like, "Yeah, at some point," but it hurts too much at the minute. But no, I think that in the last couple of years, we've had a bit of a model change. So previously, it was about, dare I say it, from what I've seen with some of your recruitment, some of it, not all of it, signing players that are coming to the end of their career, no real resale value, but will get the job done at that level, right? And that was when we had Gary Rowett as a manager, and that was the strategy, right? And we came very close to getting into the playoffs many times with that. In the last 18 months, that has been flipped on its head completely. We brought the average age of the squad down by 5 years, which is a lot when you think about it. And now it's all about, this model of bringing younger players in to hopefully, essentially make money on, and obviously the greater good. I guess like the Brentford model, if you like, that kind of thing, using a bit more data. And we've sold 3 players in the last 18 months, got over 20 million quid, which for Millwall is unheard of. But with Alex Neil, as you referred to him, he knows the Championship, right? He knows what's required. He's got out of the Championship. And so far, touch wood, I've been incredibly impressed with him. You'll see a side on Saturday that are drilled, organised, maybe no more shiny names anymore. Now Japhet's gone. Ivanovic up top is probably the next one in terms of that star player. But that's kind of how we are at the moment. And it's all about how do you then reinvest that money? And that's the conversations we're having now around the money, how we're going to spend the Tanganga money.
You've got a mate of ours, Macaulay Langstaff, formerly of Notts County in your team. Doesn't really seem to have hit the same levels as when we saw him in League Two in the National League. Is he in and about the first team at the minute?
He was, but he got injured. So last season was difficult for him. I think that, first of all, the system we played at the start of last season when he first came in was one up top. To go from League Two, playing sometimes in a 2, sometimes not, and then going up to the Championship and playing up top on your own, it's a real baptism of fire. And he struggled. And it became quite clear that he's not a bad player, but he would need 2 or 3 chances to score a goal, and you don't get that at Championship level. So I think it took him a while to get used to it. Towards the back end of last season, Alex Neil reverted to a 4-4-2. We saw some glimpses, a little bit promising over pre-season. He looked good. He looked good in the Cup, and unfortunately for him, he's just got injured. So I doubt we'll see him on Saturday. I still think there's a player in there that can play at the level, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he goes out the door before deadline day Monday.
Yeah, we won't be sad not to see him because he was a bit of a thorn on our side when we had that battle. I mean, we ultimately came out on top, but yeah. question I just had out of curiosity is how long have Millwall been at Championship level now? Because it feels like quite a long time.
Good question. I wish I'd have done my. I think this is our 8th or 9th season.
Right, yeah.
So it's. I would say we are a stable Championship club, and more often than not, we've been on the periphery of the playoffs. Obviously, last season, we were very close to at one point in the last game of the season, we were in them. So we've always been there or thereabouts. I'd like to think of us as stable. I don't think many people tipped us to be near the bottom this season. But listen, who knows? There's a lot of transfer business that could still be done in or out between now and Monday, right?
Yeah.
Chris, can I just ask you about the atmosphere at the New Den? It's been a while since I've been there, 20 years. There's a myth or a long-held sort of thoughts about Millwall and their fans. Is that still true? Are we walking into a war zone on Saturday, or is it a lot more friendly now?
Basically, should Andy wear his frock so he can go in disguise?
I'm just thinking, do I wear colours?
Cool, you'd be a brave man to do that, mate. No, I think it's fair to say it has mellowed. It has, and I think that there's a few different reasons for that. I think society, and has evolved, right? And I think football has come along with it. You look back at the 80s and the 90s and all sorts, right? So I think there's an element of that. I think there's an element of the dynamic of who attends a Millwall game now. Like Saturday's a sellout. Now, up until the last year or two, that was not happening at Millwall. And where are these extra fans coming from? Well, a lot of them are Europeans, people that are visiting for the day and want to catch a game. So we are getting more and more tourists, which of course is a slightly different dynamic. And then I think the overall match day experience is trying to evolve, obviously, for us to get more commercial revenue, right? Which is obviously something that I admire you guys for in terms of the amount of commercial revenue that you're bringing in. So look, I think time and a place, right? I think if we're playing Leeds at home in a cup game, yeah, there could be some interesting things that go on. Difficult to say with you because, I think you'll be aware that you're not everyone's flavour of the month, right? For various different reasons. So it'd be really interesting to see how that reception goes down for you.
News to us. I thought everyone loved us.
I hope Birmingham more, so you're fine.
I've just been watching that doc. That is a piece of work. That doc, fair play. I've only got two episodes in, and everyone seems incredibly unlikable. But
yeah, even Tom Brady,
Tim, when he popped up.
Thanks.
Sorry, I digress. So, good to know that on Saturday. I won't put my tin hat on. Tim, remember the last time we went there? Wasn't there an incident where the Millwall fans picked on some fellow with a jumper or a tracksuit, and it went on for about 70 minutes?
I don't know. I mean, I've got my own Millwall stories. Everybody has, haven't they? And you regale them, and it's like, well, yeah, that kind of does what's the word I'm looking for? Validate what the general traditional Millwall experience is supposed to be, or of past anyway. So we've all got them. Whichever way you look at it, whether there's been a concerted effort made to turn it into more of a family-friendly club, whether there's certain elements of reveled in having that reputation, being top of the banning order league, blah blah blah, whatever, on and on and on it goes. Ultimately, bring it back to what Chris is saying. Established championship team, been there or thereabouts, pushing for the playoffs, as was the case last season. I'm sure, remind me off the top of my head, I'm sure there was like an FA Cup final appearance. Didn't seem that long ago. How long ago was that? It wasn't long.
20 years. Well, 21. But yeah.
Wow, was it? Shit.
Yeah, we're older than we think, mate.
And then you've got like, everybody can just remember, can cherry pick things, whether it's Neil Harris as a legend, or did Casey Keller play for you? Am I just making that up?
No,
Casey Keller, remember him being there. So you can remember certain players from any team really if you've been down there long enough. So I think it's going to be a big test. I think it's going to be an interesting test, and this is what we want. This is what we've clambering around for ages. What's the nearest non-league team to Millwall, Andy? I mean, where have we been in comparison in recent years?
Bromley quite close.
Yeah.
Sutton maybe. Yeah, maybe. Right, let's take it through the team. I know you say it's not really full of stars, and maybe Ivanovic is one of the better ones. So it's going to be 4-4-2. Where else are you particularly strong? I seem to know Cooper at the back, the captain. Is it Joe Cooper? Jake, yeah, sorry. So I think pretty strong there. Is that do you sort of win games by the odd goal, or are you quite expansive?
Yeah. I'm looking at your form now, and I'm like, oh shit, there we go. That's what we were like in previous seasons. I think you've conceded 1 this season.
Well, we lost at home to Middlesbrough 3-0 in the second game of the season. Did they deserve to win? Yes, no doubt about that. And they look a very good side, Middlesbrough. But it was 1-0 until 86 minutes. You know, we were trying to get back in the game. So I think 3-0 isn't really a reflection of that. But I do think Middlesbrough are a serious side this season. But obviously then we won at Norwich and we won at Sheffield United. I think that one of the problems we've had for the last few years is our ability to score goals. We've always been quite solid defensively. We haven't been able to score goals. And Alex Neil has tweaked the system. So it will be really interesting to see how this season unfolds for us, because we are trying to sort of rebalance that in terms of being able to score more goals and try and keep it fairly tight at the back. So it'll be really interesting. In terms of where we're strong, I would say centre-back, but then, of course, Jaffet's just gone. So it's really difficult. I would imagine a lad called Tristan Kramer will come in and play at centre-back alongside Jake Cooper. He was on loan at Exeter last season, so you may or may not have recalled him. He's made the step up, taken to it like a duck to water. He's been phenomenal, Tristan Kramer. So he's another player, again, that I think is really strong for us. We've got quite a lot of injuries already, which is really frustrating. So I would have also said the wings, we're pretty strong, but we've got a couple of injuries there. Arguably, both wingers could be out. So tough to say, but I think that we are, again, I think we're a decent championship side, and I think that will be a very different test for your game that you went away at Southampton. Very, very different test, because we are not going to want 70% of the ball. That's just not our game. Our game is to have the ball.
So it's not ours either.
Yeah, but no, you have it. No, you have it. So it'd be really interesting. I think a lot of the game we played on the counter attack for both sides, from what I've seen for you guys. I've always liked Kiefer Moore. We actually signed him and it fell through right at the end of last August. So he's been a player that's been linked with us more often than I've had opt-iners. So be interesting to see what he's like. Obviously, Ryan Longman coming back. It'd be a really good game, good atmosphere. And being really honest, given our start to the season, I would be disappointed if we don't win a tight game.
That's true. That leads us quite on nicely to predictions, I think. Tim?
I just, I think the Middlesbrough result was a bit of a stinger, and then looking at the others, they're just really, really tight games. Beat Norwich 2-1, beat Newport in the Cup 1-0. The defeat to Middlesbrough, beat Sheffield United last week 1-0. I think it could have been more from what I saw on the TV, and beat Coventry 2-1. So not much in it, and I still think we're finding our feet from that sort of thing. We're still knackered at the back in terms of leaky goals everywhere. So I would quite happily take a 1-1. I'd be happy with that.
Liam?
I was going to go for the same as Tim, and I'll probably stick with it, to be honest. I think, it's not been the best start to the season, but understandably so, given the turnover, taking players time to gel. I think a draw at Millwall would be a decent result for that, so I'm going to go with that.
Do you know what? I've just got a sneaky. We're going to edge it. Like Chris thinks, that his team can take a tight game. I'm thinking the same. I think we might win 1-0 or 2-1. And come and find me outside the New Den after if that doesn't happen.
Which pub are you going in beforehand so everybody could come and speak to you about your prediction?
Yeah. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely brilliant to have you on. Wish you best. What were your thoughts on George Evans, just before we let you go?
George Evans. The system we played at the time, we felt too much of a luxury player. I thought he was very, very good on the ball. And you could tell we had an incredible passing range and obvious quality. But we needed someone that would do all of that, but also would go around busting a gut, trying to win the ball back and chase. And he just didn't really seem that type of player. He never really fit in the system. So therefore, based on that, I just didn't really ever feel that he could be a regular starter for us. But that was be interesting to hear what you think, because he's in and out of the side, right? My understanding.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes he doesn't even make the squad. He didn't play on Tuesday either. I would be surprised if he was here at the end of the season. I think they might try and move him on.
I think he'll be gone soon. I think Ollie Palmer's obviously on his way to Swindon Town as of today, for what we've heard, and I think gorgeous George Evans will be following suit, and Tom O'Connor as well. It's just so many ins and outs that I cannot really keep up with. It's a bit wacky, isn't it?
So, well, that's great. That's what we want.
It is. Right.
Great.
So we've done predictions. That'll do us. I'm going to join Chris on his pod thing in a minute. Return the favour. Is that it? We covered everything?
The only thing I would think is, Liam, I know you've taken to social on this. It's the Arthur chants from Tuesday, which has cut the fan base in. A lot of people think it's just a bit of fun. A lot of people, including you, can see problems with it.
Do you want to sing it? Do you want to sing it for us?
No, I don't want to sing it. I mean, but the fact that Mark Howard put it on Instagram does.
Chris is curious now, so we can get an impartial point of view.
Go on, Liam. Just say. You don't have to sing it.
Just sing it. Fucking hell, we'll get cancelled.
No, it's basically we got goalkeeper Arthur Conquo, and they like to sing about the size of his penis. Yeah,
he tucks it in his sock.
Yeah,
that's not a line in the song, by the way.
Which is decidedly iffy in my view, just because of the connotations to it. I mean, I've heard people going on about it's a compliment or whatever, and it's just like it's just a tired old sort of stereotype. It's one of those. I'm not saying that fans who are singing it are doing it with the intent of causing.
No, they're not. They're not all. Yeah,
offense. And Mark Howard is definitely not trying to cause any offense. Because he's played with Arthur previously. But I mean, my one take on it is, look, it's not an issue which affects me personally, but I've read enough in terms of black players who are uncomfortable with it. Romelu Lukaku wasn't particularly fond of it. There's quite a long list of players actually who've just asked fans to knock it on the head. And I think if your own player, if there's any even slight danger that it's going to make them feel uncomfortable, just knock it on the head. There's other chants about Arthur. Tim created about 20 of them.
Not one of them is used. Contain no racial stereotyping. Not one of them was used.
There was. I think it was. Sorry, I've just been reading something on the Athletic with Frank Newblay, former Ipswich and West Ham striker, and he sort of talked about it. He said the chants have lessened as the years have gone by, but 5 or 6 years ago, it was about the size of your penis or what's he got hiding in a sock. It doesn't hurt you straight away because you think it's a bit of a joke and it's not insulting in their eyes and it's uplifting. But at the same time, there are historical connotations about it. My family and friends were saying that this is a song they don't want to be hearing. Whatever's chanting at you, you try to make it push you to your limits. But when you sit back and analyse it, it can be hurtful and hit people's state of mind. So I think when you're just trying to celebrate a player, just don't sing about their cock, basically, because it's a bit weird.
I think that's a great way to end a podcast.
You got to look at it. The other point of view is if you went to watch a women's game and a load of blokes or women started singing about the size of a player's breasts, it would be deemed rather offensive. So if you kind of put it in that same sort of bracket, you can see why people are a bit pissed off about it. But anyway, we don't want to sully that of dowering this pod. It's been discussed, and we'll see what people's thoughts are on it, shall we say? But there we are.
We've mentioned Palmer. Any other transfers that we've heard of? So do we think it's between James and Andy Irvine for the midfield?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with James, because there was talk originally that he was going to be in for talks on Tuesday. For anyone who's not familiar, this is Jordan James. We're talking about Wales international, Rennes midfielder. But now there's talk that Ipswich are interested as well, which could be the spanner in the works potentially. So we'll see where that one goes. The others I've seen are Irving from West Ham, Who's the Everton lad? Harrison Armstrong. Loan, been linked with him on loan. Did well for them last night in the Carabao Cup. I'm sure there was one other as well. Will Smallbone from Southampton. But it basically, he wants at least another midfielder, I think, is what you can take from that. And it's a bit up in the air in terms of who will come in. Also worth mentioning, Tom O'Connor is apparently looking for a move away, understandably so, after Callum Doyle came in, because that's similar position, and you'd put him third in the pecking order now, probably, Tom O'Connor.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about O'Connor is he can play midfield, but
he hasn't done much for us, though, has he?
No.
Maybe any new player coming in should be asked by the media team. Do you come with your own song? If so, what is that song? And then we all know what it is. Then there we go. We'll sing that. Like the rendition of Millwall's famous "No One Likes Us, We Don't Care" will be ringing out loud and proud from the new den on Saturday. Of that, I have no doubt. Chris is nodding his head.
Is that about them or
you
us?
Better
though?
believe it.
Is that about them or us?
Well, we'll both sing it. We'll all join in at the same time.
You might as well, yeah, because that is a unified hatred by the fan bases of both clubs. So that's one thing we got in common, I think. So yeah, happy days.
Right.
Right. Thanks to Chris Chapman of Chat with Chaps, Millwall Pod. Go and check them out on all the socials. Go and find them, like, subscribe, go and like and comment about what's happening with the game before and after. Thanks to Chris Wathan from before, about talking about Wales and everything else. Thanks to Andy. Thanks to Liam. And
wouldn't you never thanked us before?
Well, I mean, it feels autumnal. I'm ready for big coats, and big jackets and bobble hats.
I never feel 10 foot tall, but yeah.
Right, go on. Let's end this. Thanks, everyone. See you.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.